little bit of wind, not much. Come out of hold, it shouldn't start to spin because in normal, my first setting is 0. So just a 4-minute timer, not gonna really push the battery. It is cold out here. So coming out of hold, shouldn't spin up. Normal mode, and it doesn't. And again, we're gonna start off normal and sport on the flight controller. Perfect. And again, with this flight mode in the flight controller and the RPM settings at 65%, should be nice and docile, and it is. You can see it's not, you know, moving back and forth so quickly. Should be able to take it out, fly a nice loop. Yeah, and sure enough, I like the sport setting for doing this type of flying. You can see it's slow to roll because of that sport setting. Now, if we get a little more speed and we're flying into the wind, that was as sharp as a roll as that helicopter will do when we're in that sport mode. Now let's bring it back and let's just go up to medium flight mode on the flight controller. So this is stability high angle. Now watch the way this thing rolls now. Take it out. And look how sharp that roll was. Look how fast that helicopter rolled. And that's the difference between that FBL flight mode. Helicopter is definitely much more responsive. Now I'm going to bump it up to Stunt 1 so we get a little more RPM, 5% increase. So there's Stunt 1. And now this should be right for doing basic type of 3D. Let's flip it over and see how it responds. And it is. It's good for basic 3D. Gives you the controls. Bring it up again here. Let's see if we can roll it over. There it is, hovering upside down. Really good, friendly 3D controls, I would say. This is medium flight mode on the flight controller. Medium flight mode on the flight controller and 70% on the throttle. And at this point, the helicopter is pretty docile still, but able to do the 3D. You've got all the controls you need for doing like the inverted flight. There it is, hovering upside down. And now let's go to Stunt 2. We should see a 10% increase in throttle. And you see it pick up. And now I'm going to bump it up to agility mode. And now this helicopter is much peppier and much more responsive. Oh yeah, you can see it's much more glued in place with those settings. Much more glued in place with the Stunt 2 and the higher RPM. So we're back to normal mode, 65% throttle. So yeah, it responded a lot like I expected it to. We went through normal mode, Stunt 1 and Stunt 2. And in normal mode, like I was saying, I flew it in normal flight mode. I flew it in sport mode in the Brain 2. And it was responding, you know, a lot more docile. Like I said, it was good for like the tail whips, and it would do a loop, but you may have noticed it was quite a large loop. It was doing about a 15-20 foot circle as it came around, and that was as fast as I could make it. That was with almost 100% directional elevator. Now, if I switched it up to stability high angle, we went into, I think it's the third flight setting in the FBL. I forget what it's labeled. But you notice the helicopter, I mean, it did a loop on a dime. So those are the differences in the way the helicopter is going to respond with the different settings in the FBL. And then you just match those settings with your flight mode settings for your helicopter. All right, flight 4. Flight 4, second pulse battery. I think these pulses have just a little bit more of a snap to them. We're in normal flight mode. We're in normal flight mode and sport on the flight controller. Start off with a couple tail whips. Whoa. The wind got it at time. It's pretty windy out here. Flying into the wind. Yeah, it definitely moves pretty good for a little helicopter. I'll make this a sweeping turn instead of a tail whip. Little helicopter definitely cranks. All right. Pull it in. Going to stability high angle, Stunt 1, jumping to 70% throttle. Roll it over. All right, I lost perception of it there. I put her in. Let's take a look. So it got away from me. Let's take a look at what's going on here. So I was in Stunt 1, and so I don't see any damage to the helicopter. Everything looks fine except the feathering shaft. So I put it in inverted, and you can see the feathering shaft bent. So I will replace the feathering shaft and probably the main while I'm in there. But otherwise, it looks like it's just the feathering shaft that that broke. I will the main gear. Gonna have to do the main gear, and I'll have to, let's just check the servos real quick. It's in hold. Looks like all of our servos are good. All our servos are good. Just bent our feathering shaft, and probably replace the main because this main gear is stripped. But that looks like, I don't see anything else. The canopy off here. Everything else looks fine. I don't see any damage. The arm that goes up to the blade grip did not break. See, very well made, all metal parts. Looks like just the feathering shaft. You can see it right there, bent. Feathering shaft and main gear. So yeah, you know, I don't know what other helicopter you can crash inverted in stunt mode and just take out two little tiny pieces, but we'll get those replaced and we'll get it back in the air. All right, I'm here with the T-Rex 300X, and we're just going to go out and try some different flight modes. We've got our Brain 2 Mini installed, and I've got the flight modes on this flight controller are switchable. So as opposed to a flight controller where you pick a mode and it's set up in that mode, the Brain allows you to switch between which mode you have it set in. So the first mode on the flight controller is sport, and I have that set up stability high angle, stability low angle, as stability low angle. Now in normal mode and stability low angle, the helicopter should be relatively smooth to fly for going out and flying smoother loops and turns and that sort of stuff. It should respond a little more slowly and fly like a larger helicopter is what my goal is with that setting. Then we go to stability high angle. Stability high angle, and this is the medium flight mode where the helicopter is a bit more responsive and responds faster, and that's probably going to be the better mode for being in Stunt 1 and say flying upside down and holding it in one place, more precise maneuvers. And then the last step, agility mode on here is what I have the vocal set, is acrobatic, and that's almost full controls. So I'm going to run it through the three different flight modes. Stability high angle, stability low angle, compared to the three flight modes on the Switch, which is normal, Stunt 1, and Stunt 2. So normal, we'll double check the throttle settings, throttle curve. So normal is at 65%, Stunt 1 is 70, and Stunt 2 is 80. So we'll do the three different flight modes, and then we'll do the three different modes on the flight controller and just see how they affect the helicopter. I'm thinking, like I said, normal mode and in sport is going to be good for the more big air type of flying, and then Stunt 1 and in low angle or medium settings is going to be better for doing the 3D type of stuff. And then acrobatic should really amp the helicopter up on the RPMs and make it, you know, much more responsive. I'll probably tie those modes right to the flight mode switch, but I just figured I would play around with the modes individually, the flight controller modes separately from the flight modes at first, to just see how the helicopter responds. I'll probably like it just like that, and then I'll just wind up moving the FBL, the flight controller modes, right over to this switch, so everything will be on one switch. But for now, I just wanted to play with it separately and see how it goes. So just verify the battery here. Yep, we're at 97%. And plug it in. Let it initiate. Wait till we see a response from our... There it goes. It is in hold mode. Now, again, I've got these canopy mounts set up. If there's no battery in it, the factory mounts were fine, but I found that with the battery in it, the canopy was much easier to get on, moving the mounts back about 1 centimeter. And we'll just verify our swash setting. So you see the swash levels itself out, back to front, left to right. And our tail compensation, when I push it left, these blades should go left, and they do. When I push it right, the blades should kick right, and they do. So our tail compensation is set up correctly. It's in hold mode. We've got about a 15 or 20 mile an hour wind. So a little bit of wind, not much.